Somewhere beneath the earth, buried under centuries of jungle, sand, and silence, there is a city that was never supposed to be found. Not a myth. Not a legend passed down around a fire. A real city. With real streets, real temples, real people who once laughed and prayed and built something they believed would last forever. And then one day it was gone. No war claimed it. No record explained it. The world simply moved on, and the city disappeared, as if it had never existed at all. For hundreds of years nobody knew where to look. Some people didn't even believe it was real. And then one man, armed with nothing but an old map and a belief that history had been lying to us, walked into the wilderness and changed everything we thought we knew. What he found will genuinely make you question how much of the past has already been lost forever. Welcome back to Epoch Stories, the place where history stops being a textbook and starts being the greatest story ever told. If you're new here, we are so glad you found us. Make sure you hit that subscribe button before we go any further, because what we're about to unpack today is the kind of story that stays with you long after it's over. Now, when most people think about lost cities, their minds jump to Atlantis. A fantasy. A bedtime story dressed up in ancient Greek philosophy. But the city we're talking about today was nothing like that. This was a functioning civilization. A place with architecture so advanced, so deliberately designed, that when modern explorers first laid eyes on the ruins, they refused to believe that the people who built it had done so without outside help. That reaction alone should tell you something. Because throughout history, whenever Western explorers stumbled upon the brilliance of civilizations they hadn't expected to find, the response was almost always the same: disbelief. Denial. A desperate search for a different explanation. The truth, as always, was far more powerful than the excuse. So let's go back. All the way back to the moment before the city vanished, when it was still alive, still breathing, still the beating heart of an entire world. The city we are talking about is Petra. Carved directly into the rose-red cliffs of what is now southern Jordan, Petra was the capital of the Nabataean Kingdom, a civilization so sophisticated, so quietly powerful, that for centuries the rest of the world had almost no idea it existed. And the Nabataeans wanted it that way. They were traders first. Masters of the desert, moving spices, silk and incense across routes that connected Arabia, Egypt, Greece, and Rome. They knew the desert not as an obstacle but as a shield. While other kingdoms built armies and waged open wars, the Nabataeans built roads through terrain no enemy could follow, and they got rich doing it. At the height of their power, more wealth passed through Petra than through most of the major cities of the ancient world. The frankincense that burned in Roman temples, the silks draped across the bodies of Egyptian nobles, the spices that flavored the food of kings across 3 continents. Almost all of it moved through Petra, and nobody outside their world fully understood how. But here is where the story gets remarkable. The Nabataeans did not just survive in the desert. They mastered it in a way that modern engineers still study today. Petra sits in one of the driest regions on Earth. Rainfall was rare, unpredictable, and when it came violently, sending flash floods ripping through the narrow canyon passages called Six. For any other civilization, this would have been a death sentence. The Nabataeans turned it into a superpower. They built one of the most advanced water management systems the ancient world had ever seen. A network of channels, pipes, cisterns, and dams carved directly into the rock face, designed to capture every drop of rainwater and funnel it into underground reservoirs. In a region where water should have been impossible to store, Petra had enough to sustain a population of 30,000 people. 30,000 people. In the middle of the desert. Living in a city carved from stone. Think about that for a moment. Now, before we go any further, if this story is already gripping you the way it should be, do me a quick favor. Hit the like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who love history told this way. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time. We do this every week, and you do not want to miss what's coming next. Alright, back to Petra. The city's most famous structure is something called the Treasury, Al-Khazna in Arabic, a towering facade carved directly into a cliff face, standing over 40 meters tall, decorated with columns and sculptures of extraordinary precision. When the first European explorer to document Petra, a Swiss traveler named Johann Ludwig Burckhardt, disguised himself as an Arab pilgrim in 1812 and slipped past the local tribes guarding the region, He emerged from the narrow canyon passage and came face to face with the treasury. He stood there in silence, because no description he had ever read, no rumor he had ever heard, had prepared him for what he was seeing. A city, hidden in plain sight, surrounded by cliffs so tall and passages so narrow that you could walk within a mile of it and never know it was there. The Nabataeans had not just built a city, they had hidden it from the entire world. And for nearly 1,000 years after Rome absorbed their kingdom, the outside world forgot it completely. Local Bedouin tribes knew. They had always known. Petra was their secret, passed down through generations, protected fiercely from outsiders. For centuries they watched explorers and scholars search the region and find nothing, because nobody thought to ask the people who had been living beside it all along. And what happened after Burckhardt's discovery changed the story again. Because when archaeologists finally began to excavate Petra properly in the 20th century, they found something that nobody had predicted. The city was far larger than anyone had imagined. Above ground, Petra already contained hundreds of carved tombs, temples, theaters, and royal chambers. But beneath the surface, ground-penetrating radar revealed an entirely separate city. Buried structures, hidden rooms, passages that had never been opened. As of today, archaeologists believe that less than 15% of Petra has been excavated. 15%. Which means that 85% of one of the most significant cities in human history is still underground, still waiting, still holding its secrets in the dark. The fall of Petra, when it finally came, was not dramatic. It was slow, a quiet unraveling. Rome absorbed the Nabataean Kingdom in 106 AD, and with Roman control came Roman trade routes. Sea routes. Routes that bypassed the desert entirely and made the overland paths through Petra less necessary. Slowly the merchants moved on. The wealth dried up. The population shrank. A devastating earthquake in 363 AD cracked the water system the Nabataeans had spent centuries perfecting, and without water, the rest of the city followed. By the time the medieval world arrived, Petra was empty. The desert had begun to reclaim the stone. The wind moved through its empty corridors like memory. And for the next 1400 years the world forgot it was there. What Petra leaves us with is not just the wonder of a hidden city. It is a question. If a civilization this advanced, this powerful, this innovative could be lost so completely that the entire world forgot it existed, what else are we missing? What other cities, what other peoples, what other chapters of the human story are still buried somewhere beneath our feet, waiting for someone curious enough, stubborn enough, or brave enough to go looking? History is not a finished book. It is a story still being told. And the most important chapters may not have been found yet. If this video moved you the way these stories move me when I research them, please share it with someone who loves history. Leave a comment below telling me which lost civilization you want us to cover next, because your suggestions genuinely shape what we make. Like the video, subscribe to Epoch Stories, and come back next time, because the past still has so many secrets left to give. We will see you in the next one.